Howdy, gang, and welcome to yet another episode of Celluloid Trash. Hey, kids. Hey, the poet. Yeah, you were a little bit early, kids, but whether you're early, late, you come in at the middle, you come in at the tail end, I still appreciate you, each and every one of you guys and gals. Um, but instead of going on about the stuff I've got on the channel, um, I was going to talk a little bit about ways you can support me in the channel and it won't cost you a dime. But I do want to remind you that we've got another Horror Mania episode coming up, episode 4, tomorrow night, hopefully at 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, talking about horror films from 1912 to 1916. Hopefully, I'll have that promotion up before night's end for those of you that like to keep tabs on when I'm doing things. But to get to the ways you can support me in the channel, it won't cost you a dime. Now, how bad was the snow, the poet? I'd say we probably, well, Steve said 6 or 7 inches or so, but he couldn't really tell. Um, and then we had a little bit of sleet on top of it. The roads are still bad, or were still bad today, and public transportation was almost ground to a halt. It's 9 degrees right now. I think it's supposed to get down to -1. So look, what bothers me more than anything, and I don't mind cold weather, but this is absolutely, frigid. But I don't want to complain too much because, it could swing the other way. And we could be having 60 and 70-degree temperatures in the winter, which I don't like. So I'm not going to complain too much about it. Kids, she said, I'm so mad we only got 6 inches. I wanted a crazy winter storm up here in the mountains. Oh, yeah, I bet you did. Um, and I was expecting more the way they were, talking about this particular storm. And I don't think we got nearly what they said we were going to get. But what I do feel fortunate about is we never lost power. I was able to keep me and Steve were able to stay warm. We were able to keep our little critters warm, including my reptiles and little Ozzy, my dormouse, who, if the temperatures got really, really cold and stayed cold too long, he could go into a dormant state and it could be deadly for him. So, um, as much as I appreciate, and I'm sure other people that are monetized, either partially or fully, appreciate the super chats and the super stickers and people joining your Patreon and all of that. I do as much as the next person. But I also realize that everybody's not made out of money, especially in this day and age. So there are ways that you can support me in the channel and get me up in the algorithms of YouTube. It won't cost you a dime. And one way is by subscribing. If you're enjoying the content I'm putting out and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It costs you absolutely nothing. I'm not going to ask anything from you. You can watch what you want to watch. You can disregard the rest. I'm not going to try to come to your house and sell you cookies and candy bars. I'm not going to try to minister to you or anything like that. In fact, I pretty much look at the numbers. I don't really dig in there to see who has subscribed and who has not. Kids, you say it was 32 all week for us up here, but I'd rather have the snow than that. Yeah. And thank you, kids. You say I put your channel on mine so my followers can look because Tom recommended your channel. Yeah, Tom's a really good guy. I miss him when he actually isn't in here, but of course he could be watching and just not chatting too. He's since day one of him coming to my channel, he has been a big supporter of my channel. So I want to thank you, Kits, for doing that. I really, really appreciate it. Another way you can support me and the channel, and it won't cost you a dime. Once you subscribe, uh, you can hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the content I've got coming up. Maybe he's singing karaoke, kids. He's always telling me he's at karaoke. Could be. I think he's mentioned something to me about karaoke as well. Um, you can also hit that like button for things that you particularly liked. And hey, if you liked everything or loved everything that I'm putting out, hit that like button all across the board. And here's one more way you can support me in the channel. It won't cost you a dime, won't cost anybody you tell about the channel a dime. Is sharing with friends and family members that you think might be interested in the content that I'm putting out. Share my channel with them. And it's the @ Deadites on Deck, folks, in case you want to share my channel handle. And I'm sorry, I keep doing that and sniffling, but my nose is running. I don't know if it's because I'm back here where it's pretty cold, but I've got the heater running on me back here. Otherwise, I couldn't be back here to do this. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get to these movies tonight, now that I've been talking for about 10 minutes. So the first movie, and I had never seen either one of these movies before today, folks. So they're fresh in my mind and all that good stuff. All right. So the first one is Cannibal Hookers, aka I Will Dance on Your Grave, is the other title for this one. And you know, I wasn't that jazzed about watching something called Cannibal Hookers. Not because of the cannibal part, but because of the hookers part. And yes, it was a bad movie. It was kooky and all that good stuff. Directed by Donald Farmer, came out in 1987. And Donald Farmer is notorious for doing a lot of this low budget type of schlocky exploitation type of films. And I watched it. It's a little bit harder to find. You might have to do some digging. Be careful of the sites that you find it on. I was lucky enough that the site that I clicked on, and it was a foreign site, didn't have any viruses or anything, but just be very, very careful about where you get this particular film from if you care to watch it. So you have a couple of college students who are wanting to, a couple of girls who are wanting to get into a sorority, and they're kind of getting into a sorority that doesn't have a real good reputation, folks. And of course, you've got girls that look, I know you can be in college at any age, but generally, sorority sisters are not going to look like they're about 35 or 40. And this sorority sister that was trying to get more people in the sorority looked kind of old for that role. But, you know, it was still fun to watch the cannibal part of it. The film wasn't extremely bloody. The DVD cover for this would lead you to believe that this movie is going to have a lot of, you know, axes chopping into bodies and stuff like that. It's not really all about that. Mainly people get bit on the neck and stuff like that. And then they get they get kind of possessed and turned into cannibals. Kids, you say there's good and bad kooky, but this movie is bad kooky. Yeah, it's not real good. I remember stumbling on this, and it didn't have the Cannibal Hookers title. So, like my grandma walked into the room, it was on DVD from a thrift shop. Needless to say, he was like, what? Yeah, exactly. You know, I wasn't as impressed with some of these celluloid trash titles as I have been with others that I've talked about. Some of them that I've talked about on Celluloid Trash, I've really enjoyed. Others, this was probably a first and a last time watch, and this is probably going to fall into that category for me. Um, some of you guys might enjoy it a little more because you get to see a little more of the female flesh. But me being a heterosexual female was not really all that interested. The poet saying it's going to be a 3 or 4. I love it that the poet has pretty much got me down as far as what I'm going to rate a movie as before I even say anything about it. Kid, she said, mind you, I was much younger when I stumbled on it. Yeah, sometimes we stumble upon things that maybe we should have been a little bit older for, but I think the majority of us turned out all right. So you're almost right on the money again, to poet, because I'm going to not be giving this one a 4. That I'll at least give it a 3 for the horror factor and the fact that it has cannibals in it somewhat. Okay. So that is Cannibal Hookers. And the next one I liked a lot better. And that's The Chilling with Linda Blair. I didn't know this had Linda Blair on it. Linda Blair, Dan Haggerty, and Troy Donahue are all in this movie, folks. And it says they came, they thawed, they conquered. This came out in 1989, folks. I did enjoy this one, and I could see myself going back and rewatching this one later on. This is available on YouTube if you've never seen it and you want to take a gander at it. You can watch it for free on YouTube right now. And so what you have is this cryogenics lab where they freeze people with the plan to thaw them out and bring them back from the dead at some point later in time. And Linda Blair, I mean, I always thought Linda Blair was a decent actress, but her acting in The Chilling is a little lackluster. Maybe I've been spoiled by seeing her in other stuff. But it wasn't completely horrible. It was just a little flat, I thought. I love Dan Haggerty in this. He plays a security guard at the cryogenics lab. I love the dog Luke, and I was pleasantly surprised that they did not kill the dog Luke off. It was a Doberman in this, and usually the the dogs and cats maybe will get killed in a horror film. But so you have a man, a businessman, who his wife died of a terminal illness, and he brings her or he doesn't, but he has the hospital when she dies, bring her to the cryogenics lab. And he's been talking with the main doctor there, played by Troy Donahue. And this is not a good doctor, folks. What he is actually doing is getting grieving people to bring their deceased loved ones to this cryogenics lab. And he's promising that we're going to unthaw them years into the future, and you will have your family member back just like you remember them. However, we see a little bit behind the scenes that the doctor is having his assistant remove all the organs from the bodies and then putting the body in a some kind of metal tube where they're supposed to be frozen. What he's doing with the organs is he's selling them on the black market and making money. So theoretically, without their organs, even if you could bring them back after thawing them out, it's not going to work if you're taking their brain, their heart, all of that out. Okay. So Linda Blair works at this cryogenics lab, but she doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes. She also has an alcoholic boyfriend who's abusive to her. And she kind of falls for the gentleman who has his wife, and then his son tries to rob a bank and gets shot by cops. And so in the space of a day or two, he's lost both his wife and his son. And even though his son was doing bad things, it was his only son, his only child. And as any grieving parent would do, he kind of makes some wrong decisions, and a grieving husband would do. He makes, he was kind of like Louis Creed in Pet Sematary. Instead of burying his family beyond the Pet Cemetery and the Micmac Indian burial ground and them coming back and they're not the same, this gentleman was having his family members cryogenically frozen in the hopes that he could have them back one day. So this movie's not real bloody either, but it's got a lot of ooey gooey creatures in it, courtesy of these frozen dead people. So what happens is everybody pretty much leaves the cryogenics lab, except for the head security guard, again played by Dan Haggerty, and his assistant. And there's a big storm. It takes place on Halloween night. And there's a big, huge thunderstorm that cuts out the power. And for whatever reason, the two security guards think it's a good idea to move some of these little pods or whatever with the frozen bodies in them outside. But what they don't know is before these bodies are frozen, they're injected with a cryogenic fluid that's bright green, kind of looks like the reanimator reagent. Is put into the body, and it can get activated by electricity. So when these pods are put outside, guess what? They all get struck by lightning, and the bodies come back to life. But they're not humans. They're some kind of creatures that kind of look like chuds. If you've seen the movie Chud or Chud 2, Bud the Chud, you kind of get kind of a good idea of what they are and what they look like. And I guess you could call them zombies as well. I like the look of them. Some of them evidently had been there a little longer than others, and they looked a little worse for wear, and others still kind of looked a little human. So overall, I like the movie as a zombie creature type of film. It was fun. I liked it much, much better than Cannibal Hookers. Needless to say. And I also liked what they did at the end. They did a kind of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Animal House type of thing, telling what happened to the characters after the movie was over. And I liked that. I thought that was a little funny touch that they added to it, when that's usually used for comedy films, but instead they used it for a horror film. And you forgot about this one, kids? Yeah, like I said, I had never seen either one of these prior to today. And of course, I enjoyed one better than the other, and that one that I enjoyed was The Chilling. And so I'm going to give this one a review or a rating, and I'm going to give it 4, maybe 4.5 deadites out of 5, folks, because I could really see myself going back and rewatching this one, and it just wasn't too bad, folks. So that is the chilling. And again, as always, I don't ever intend for these to be very long, 20 to 30 minutes at best. Because I'm only talking about 2 movies. And like I always say, I don't like to beat a dead horse or run something into the ground. So I hope that everybody has enjoyed this episode of Celluloid Trash. I want to thank Kits and the Poet for being in here in the chat and keeping me company as I navigated through these couple of movies. And for those of you that were watching along, maybe didn't feel comfortable getting in the chat, or you were watching on a device where you were unable to chat like a smart TV, I want to thank you guys and gals as well. And for those of you that couldn't join us live, but we'll watch this on the replay, I thank all of you guys and gals as well. And as always, I'm off like a dirty shirt. This shirt ain't dirty, but I'm off like one. And I want to remind everybody, as I always do before I get off of here for the night, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. Coming up next is Horror Mania tomorrow night, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That is correct, the Poet. And I'm going to get out of here for the night. Everybody have a fantastic rest of your Monday night. And I'll see everybody next time.